When you need someone to double-check the referee's instant replay, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Jesse.
Casey is out today for personal issues. He always seems to back out when we have some kind of new fantasy epic in the Independence to read, doesn't it?
Interesting.
Is he allergic to something?
I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like sorcery. But,
Or fun.
Shots fired.
Wow, okay. Don't think I can beat that. So how are you, Joanna?
I'm doing fine. Had a long week. I've been doing job hunting, and I'm looking forward to family visiting later this week.
Nice. It sounds like a very rich personal life.
I try. It's either that or just hanging out with my cats again.
Well, there's always practicing for the future. Okay, she's just going to kill me. Fine. Jesse, how are you?
I am exhausted today.
Yeah?
Yeah, work was terrible.
Yeah, I know it's been humid throughout the state of California today, and that tends to pull everything out of me, but I've honestly been indoors since the morning, so I do not know.
No, I had a lot of things to do today on top of dealing with our regular customers in mass today.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing I needed to do was inventory the store, so that took a while since I did between everything, including one of our vendors coming by with an order.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, and on top of that, I finally got it done. Finally got the thing done about 11. Walking over to the office to hand it to the boss, and finds out that the boss went golfing today.
Okay. He thinks he's Scrooge McDuck, huh?
Oh, he does whatever the hell he wants. He's the boss.
Okay. Well, my weekend Sunday was very quiet. For some reason, I just had in my head to do nothing. I had a complete lazy day other than finishing the Sony PlayStation Spider-Man game. I finally beat that.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. Dude, that is an amazing game. That is really good, and it encapsulates the experience of reading the comics in video form really well.
And yeah, I saw a couple playthroughs, and they had some balls for what they did.
Yeah, it was really nice. But Saturday turned out to be a little bit hectic because I was cleaning up my space ahead of a video interview with a casting director. She is working with Crunchyroll to make a documentary about how anime fandom affects the lives of its fans. And
Neat.
I'm guessing my story's a little bit unique since my fandom is a direct road from, me just being a fan to professional wrestling, and that's quite literally how it went. So, yeah. So I spent a little while interviewing with her and telling stories, and I think it went well, but I have no idea if they're going to contact me in the end. So, we'll see. Other than that, I may get permission from the Disney Corporation to do like a minor photo shoot in downtown Disney during WonderCon 2019, but that's still developing.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, my life takes the weirdest turns at this point. You'd think in midlife things would slow down. No, they're speeding up in ways I just can't counter.
It's all downhill from here.
Thank you. I needed that. The subject of this week is Image Comics and Saga, Volume 1. We'll get to that after the news of the week, and we'll start with Marvel comic news. It's where we talk about the characters and intellectual properties owned by the House of Mouse and what they're going to do for the upcoming months and years. And it appears that Jessica Jones is about to get a big curveball in her life. Joanna, how familiar are you with the marital status of Jessica Jones in the comic books?
I believe the last I heard she was married to Luke Cage.
Okay, she is. They have a daughter that's of toddler age right now between the two of them. Her name is Danielle. They call her Danny.
Mm-hmm.
She is about to get a big curveball in the third issue of her current digital series. It's Jessica Jones number 3, when Danny's skin turns purple.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, there's a couple things that come off the top of the head here. In the comic books, for a long time, a period of months, basically, Jessica Jones was under the thrall of Zebediah Killgrave, a.k.a. the Purple Man. And for people that compare it to the Netflix show, the Purple Man in comics is very different. 1, his skin is naturally purple. 2, the people that are under his thrall for significant periods, their skin turns purple. So there is an immediate assumption by a number of people out there in the internet that Danielle Cage is somehow the daughter of the Purple Man, not Luke Cage. I see where that's going, except I would think they're doing something in Marvel Comics less blatantly obvious than a woman having a child under the case of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It could be that because of how long Jessica was under the Purple Man's thrall, Danny may have a couple other changes to her biology. And I don't mean through sexual assault. I mean just maybe there's some kind of latent part of Kilgrave that just never worked out of Jones's system, and Danny inherited it.
That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But how does Purple Man's powers actually work?
That's
mental.
That's a bit up to debate, because the implication is that he's psionic. He can control multiple people. That's the same as it is in the show. But it's never really been explained in the comic books how his powers work. Obviously, he has people in their thrall, and he can command them to do whatever he wants, but they've never really bothered, as far as I know, to explain how. So there could be a biological component to his power that's just never been defined in the comic books. And if you take it under the idea that the longer someone's under his control, the more likely their skin is to turn purple, that doesn't imply there's just telepathy working. That implies a biological component of some sort.
Yeah.
Right, some sort of mutation or something.
Mm-hmm. So my hope is maybe just Danielle's getting another possibility as far as a power in addition to those from her parents. Maybe she accidentally inherited something left over.
Interesting.
The Purple Man in Marvel Comics does have a daughter. I forget her real name. For a while, she was in Alpha Flight, and she went under the name Persuasion. She had the exact same abilities as Kilgrave, but she's taken a more villainous bent in the last 4 or 5 years, and now she's going by the Purple Girl at this point. So, all kinds of possibilities open. I wouldn't just assume that the first look or your first impression is what's happening, because a lot of writers are too savvy to just throw that out right at you, at least.
It's too convenient, or it's too easy for it to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of the unexpected, though, Javier Rodriguez, he's the artist on the current Exile series, which, if you've heard the show since the beginning, Casey loathes it. Like, absolutely loathes it. But it is the newest tales of several cross-dimensional characters and their chances to put right wrongs in the multiverse. The artist on the series, Javier Rodriguez, had an unused concept art of an interesting character. And, frankly, now that I've seen it, I wish they used this in the series. In this version, this character would have been the child of Aurora Monroe, known as Storm of the X-Men, and Thor Odin's son. This was a world where Thor took over as the god of thunder. She had Mjolnir, or Stormbreaker, or some... Actually, I think she had Stormbreaker from her Asgardian war days. And while she broke Loki's control, she remained the goddess of thunder, and she took on Thor as a consort. They had a daughter.
Nice.
The concept art, according to Rodriguez, would have been a new exile known as Thunderstorm. I sent you guys the image in the Skype chat so you can take a look at. I do like the design. It's a large black woman with very white hair, but she's much more broad and built out than her mother would be.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, the costume mainly echoes Thor, but by her looks and by her features, you would know that she's also the daughter of Storm for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice concept. It's a great idea. As far as the characters of the Exiles, yeah, maybe her powers would have outstripped the others by a fair amount.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yes.
Because she's obviously carrying an enchanted hammer, probably Mjolnir itself at that point, but there's no indications as to whether she inherited her mother's mutant gifts as well. I would guess more than likely.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be a heck of a... that would probably outstrip the original Thor's powers by quite a bit, the two combined.
Oh, yeah.
An Asgardian mutant. I couldn't even fathom what that would be.
Really powerful
Yeah.
and scary.
Truly. And it's funny that you bring up really powerful and scary, because the 4th issue of the miniseries of Cosmic Ghost Rider is going to come out soon. Let me see. When is this scheduled to happen here? The preview came out on Newsarama just this past week. It's scheduled to come out... oh, there is no release date on this. That's stupid. Anyway, have you guys been following this story?
No.
Okay, Cosmic Ghost Rider is the Frank Castle from the future where Thanos has basically murdered the entirety of the Marvel Universe.
Right. I knew the gist of it,
Yeah.
but I hadn't followed it.
As a decent recap, this is a Frank Castle that's gone partially insane, was killed, gained the powers of a Ghost Rider, then was found by Galactus after most of the Earth had died. Galactus gave him the power cosmic, made him a new herald, Thanos killed this future Galactus, and without anywhere else to really go, Frank Castle kind of snapped and decided to follow Thanos anyway. So, in Cosmic Ghost Rider, Frank Castle has been thrown backwards in time to the point where he was there when Thanos was a baby, took the baby, and has decided to raise it to be a better person, not a mass murderer.
But he's snapped.
Right, he's not exactly normal. You know,
boy.
Think about this. The Punisher is trying to teach morality to baby Thanos.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my mind around that. That does not sound good for the universe.
It is definitely a blue screen. But the problem is, though, as of the beginning of issue number 4, a portal has opened up from the future, and Cosmic Ghost Rider and baby Thanos are now meeting the Punisher.
Like the Punisher from our world?
No, a Punisher from the future. A man with purple skin. You know, his jaw kind of looks like deflated testicles. You could guess who that is?
Thanos.
Really?
Yes. You know, and part of the preview is baby Thanos looking up at this man saying, "Are you a cosmic serial killer?" Ha! No, little one. That's not me. Not anymore. What are you? I'm the Punisher. And there's Frank Castle behind them with his flaming head in his hands going, "Oh, for fuck's sake."
He's on the other side of that.
Yeah. So Thanos holds out his hand. "We need to hurry, Father. The portal will not hold for much longer, and my time period will be the only place we can be safe." Yeah, sure. Let's go see what new godforsaken hell I've created this time.
Wow.
I only read the first couple issues, but I gotta admit, Donny Cates has written a hell of a miniseries, and I've seen people deriding this online, like they don't understand why it exists. I'm reading it thinking, this is funny. That's why it exists. You know, this just
It's a massive what-if series.
It's a guy that can't do right, trying to do right, and still sucking at it. I find it hilarious. We have a little bit more information about the Shatterstar miniseries.
Okay.
This is the one that's being written by Tim Seeley. He's working with artists Carlos Villa and Gerardo Sandoval. And Seeley has told Newsarama.com that he is out to show that the, quote, X-Men are punk as fuck, unquote.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Meaning what?
Well, according to Seeley, Shatterstar hasn't had his own spotlight since 2005, so it's been over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Seeley said, quote, "Jesus, man, I can't believe how fast time has gone by." Okay, yes. Well, I think the initial emphasis of Marvel was, hey, he's in a Deadpool movie and we should, do something with him. And then, spoilers for Deadpool 2, they realized what a terrible thing happened to him in that movie immediately, and that we needed to go establish how cool he can be since people seem to have forgotten. So I think Marvel has a sense of having some characters that people don't realize what treasures they are, but if you wait long enough, you can come in and do something cool with them. With Shatterstar, it was 13 years ago that he had his last series, but, like you said, I think there are some new readers out there who are looking for a leading man that's cool and badass, unquote.
And they pick Shatterstar?
Yeah, it's not the first time that characters have been plucked from Marvel's history to become much more than they ever were. Think about what happened to Squirrel Girl.
Right, that's fair.
She was a throwaway character in 1970s Iron Man just to show that there were more mutants out there than just those that happened to be at the Xavier Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Seeley also said, quote, "Carlos and I wanted Rick to have a life of his own outside of both X-Men and Shatterstar. So, as we'll see, he runs a punk club called The Shakedown, and the look goes with a lifestyle," unquote. That's different.
Yeah.
Not what I would have pictured anyway. But, I'm willing to give this a chance because Tim Seeley, I can't say I've loved everything he's done, but it does appear that he's throwing his heart and soul behind this one to make something interesting. And Shatterstar is one of those characters where he's right. There hasn't been a whole lot of development, so he's almost an open book.
Mm.
So I'd like to see what he has to bring to it.
Might be interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of the X-Men universe, Uncanny X-Men #1 has added 2 more artists to it. As if the 8 that it already had aren't enough. Actually, Mahmoud Asrar is the only one doing the art and the interiors of Uncanny X-Men #1. But they've added Mark Bagley, the artist that ran most of the run of Uncanny Spider-Man, and Mirko Kolak, who I'm not familiar with at all. There's no reason given for why they've added these 2 artists, but Uncanny X-Men is still due out November 14th. Man, that's getting close. And this is supposed to be a very big issue. The cover price on it is, I think, $7.99. So whatever happens is going to be a big story. Whatever's going to happen, it's not going to be all revealed in Uncanny X-Men #1. Marvel's announced a new Secrets of Uncanny X-Men one-shot coinciding with the November 14 launch. The one-shot is going to contain concept art, previews, and more to give readers a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at what's coming up. It's going to be a 25-pack bundles of this issue at $5 per bundle. So there will be opportunities for free bundles of this one-shot tied to orders of Avengers #5. Secrets of Uncanny X-Men will also be released on November 14th. I'm a big enough X-Men mark, I will look for that at the same time I'm reading Uncanny X-Men #1. I admit, it's not for everybody, but hell, if it's got extra information, I would like to know.
That's true.
One of my least favorite creators of all time, though, is apparently being tasked with writing a new X-Men crossover. Jesse's going to be familiar with this name pretty well.
Oh?
Rob Liefeld.
Oh, okay.
Joanna, tell me how much you know about Rob Liefeld.
The name sounds vaguely familiar, and I can't place it.
Okay, he is both one of the best and worst things to come out of comics in the 1990s. I wouldn't say he got his start with the X-Men, but I say he got his big break with them when he took this series of New Mutants, ended it at issue 100, and then turned it into X-Force.
Okay.
He's credited as the creator of Cable. He's also the creator of Deadpool, although he's arguably not the guy that made him famous, because Deadpool started out as a weak ripoff of Deathstroke the Terminator from DC Comics. That character was a mercenary named Slade Wilson. You know, he created the Marvel mercenary Wade Wilson.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing is, his art style was very revolutionary back when it started out in the late 80s, early 90s. However, his art style really hasn't changed at all since then. And he was very into the extreme stuff, you know, the blood, the gritted teeth, the very small knees, huge chests that don't make any sense, things like that.
Super veins.
Yes.
And pockets and...
Yeah, pouches. Pouches are
Pouches?
his claim to fame.
And toothpick ankles.
Mm-hmm. Liefeld was a guest recently at Wizard World Comic-Con in Austin, and he said, quote, "Here's the deal. Since the X-Men movies came out and Disney didn't have them, I don't know if you've ever paid attention, but Marvel kind of turned down the volume on the X-Men for almost 20 years. Now that they have them more, what was told to me was, oh yeah, our budgets on the X-Men books are back up to with what they used to be because now we own them all." Unquote. And as a result, he's apparently working on some kind of large-scale X-Men crossover. He's announced that he's working on some kind of huge crossover for 2019. Quote, "It's awesome. Marvel called me up last Thanksgiving and said, we want you to do a big story. Well, I said, let's see if they'll go for this, and I tried something no one was done before. So I gave them this pretty aggressive proposal for an event, and I can't say what it is. I can't say what it involves. Got a lot of new stuff," unquote. And I can't argue that Marvel may have more, or Disney, I should say, may have more of an interest in the X-Men now that they're close to getting the licensing rights back for movies and everything. I will argue a bit though when he says that the X-Men are only just starting to get a budget back when we've been through a period right now where we have the New Mutants miniseries, X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, X-Men Red, the X-Men Black one-shots, and probably and the Madrox miniseries and a few other things I know I'm forgetting at this point, including like Weapon X. You know what I mean?
I don't think they've lost a beat.
No, I mean, if anything, they're honing down the number of books now that Blue and Gold are ending and the Uncanny X-Men is returning. So, I don't know. I always take what Liefeld says with a grain of salt because he's the guy that says that Marvel was trying to sink the X-Men since Fox was making movies out of them, to which I say, well, why would they bother? Half those movies really haven't performed that well, and besides which, they have nothing to do with the comics, like, at all, realistically. So, that's my take on it anyway. After all, Liefeld helped write Deadpool 2, and to me, that was an underwhelming film. Last up when it comes to Marvel comic news, Marvel has delayed the release of the final issue of the Extermination event, issue number 5, by 3 weeks. It was originally scheduled to be out November 28th, now it's coming out December 19th.
What's it?
I don't know. They did not give a reason for that, and I'm a little bit confused by this because all the indications I've seen are that Extermination are where the X-Men Blue are making their exit. I don't know why you'd have the last issue of that come out after Uncanny X-Men comes out and those characters are apparently off the board. And this issue also says that the X-Men will never be the same again. I have no idea what they mean by that. I will say I've kept up on the event. The latest issue, issue number 3, finally made it to pick of the week in my personal reviews. And one thing that's been kind of bugging me, they've implied that when these X-Men from the 60s go back in time, Professor Xavier is very likely to wipe their mind so that it doesn't break the timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Angel has those flaming cosmic wings on his back. You can't just mind whammy those away.
Right. That would be a little hard to explain.
Yeah, issue 3 actually answered that question in horrific terms.
Oh boy.
Remember I mentioned in issue number 2 that young Cable had kidnapped Calvin Rankin, the Mimic?
Yeah.
In issue 3, it revealed why he did that. He already had Angel and Iceman at this time. In the third issue, he gained Young Beast. He managed to kidnap him while Ahab was attacking the mansion. What we saw in Cable's headquarters, wherever he's hiding himself, he had Rankin close to Angel's cryo capsule, had him replicate Angel's wings, and he's cutting those off of him to graft onto Warren.
Oh.
Yeesh.
I mean, this young Cable has, like, no ethical qualms whatsoever. He's doing whatever it takes to get his mission done.
Mm-hmm.
It's disgusting. It makes sense, and I applaud Ed Brisson for writing his way past that little continuity problem, but that's gross.
That's
Yep.
brutal.
Yeah. But, like I said, it's imaginative. I never pictured that as happening. And now we have DC comic news. This is where we talk about the characters and properties owned by Warner Brothers, and actually now it's AT&T, and what's happening to them now and in the near future. The Heroes in Crisis event just started this past week, and it's already been expanded. According to the writer of this mini event, Tom King, he explained on Twitter, quote, "Getting this question a lot. What happened is that we were going to do 7 issues of Heroes in Crisis and 2 Heroes in Crisis specials. And instead, I, decided it would work better if we incorporated the specials into the numbering. So 7 and 2 became 9. Not a big deal or change in anything story-wise," unquote. I'm glad to know that. When we heard about the expansion of this, I was worried that there was some last-minute stuff that was tacked on. It turns out he's got 2 one-shot issues that were associated with it that he just brought into the main event. I'm actually kind of glad for that, because that's been one of the hardest things about getting into DC events, is that they have the main story or the main issues you have to buy, but there always seems to be so much going on in the tie-in issues that you never get the actual story in the main book. In this case, they just took those tie-in issues and made them part of the main story anyway.
I'm sure they have their reasons.
Yeah, money, I'm sure, being chief among them.
Right. That's always a reason.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a reason why Batman showed off his wang in Batman Damned. That has been the talk of the comic book world for the last 3 weeks.
And I'm trying not to.
Well, unfortunately, it came up in the news only because the writer of Batman Damned, Scott Snyder, he's actually been thrown sideways by all the attention. He's actually he's been surprised. According to a tweet he sent out on September 22nd, quote, "LOL, folks who work with my wife at the hospital asking about this comic book shows that shows Batman's junk. Had no idea it was this big of a deal. Still don't get it, but hey," unquote. If I had to understand him, basically, I don't think he understands why this matters. And I would guess it's a couple reasons. I mean, one, it's kind of unusual to see anyone's penis in a comic book, or anyone's genitals whatsoever. So even the outline of one would probably make a bit of news. And the other reason I imagine it made a lot of headlines is because there are so many memes out there right now that say that Bruce Wayne is hung as hell. I haven't seen the panels. I'm not a Batman fan, so I really don't know myself. I tried a couple weekends ago to go to my local comic book shop and pick up a copy because, as my wife says, it's probably a collector's issue. She's right. All my local shops are out of it, and on eBay, the lowest I can find it right now is $80.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is a comic that was released 3 weeks ago, so its value is just ballooned. Although I don't think it's the penis itself that makes it valuable. It's the fact that every subsequent edition, like second printings or graphic novels, DC's already announced that they're going to edit the silhouette of the penis out.
Right.
So all these issues that are out are technically collector's issues now.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Batman Damned #1 was available in stores. It was written by Brian Azzarello, illustrated by Lee Bermejo. Both pretty good creators, as far as I'm concerned. Further in the Bat family, Barbara Gordon has debuted her new costume in issue number 27 by Margaret Scott and Paul Patelier. And I took a good look at it. It was designed by Sean Murphy, the guy who did Batman White Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it before, and it definitely seemed to be a throwback to her original colors with the gray, the light blue, and the yellow, right? It turns out the reason for that is because it is literally a throwback. Batgirl Year One has become canon in DC Comics. That is like her actual origin as things are progressing forward, unless they reboot everything again, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was in her Batgirl Burnside outfit, the purple one she clutched together about 3-4 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
with the boots and the gloves.
Yeah. She was going up against a villain named Grotesque who hit her with a taser. That caused the implant that causes her to walk to wig out, and she was stuck in a wheelchair for a little while until they could repair it.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that taser also had such an... because of the tasing, before she went back to the hospital, she made sure to ditch her Batgirl costume. She didn't want to go to the hospital in it and have a whole bunch of questions, you know?
Right.
So that meant she ditched all of her gear. Well, her dad was so concerned about her inability to walk for a while, he brought her home for a little while. And while she was trying to figure out how to follow Grotesque, she remembered that she had a little cubby in the back of her closet with a prototype costume she designed when she was younger. That's why it looks like the way it is. It is literally a throwback costume.
Makes sense.
So she put it on, and apparently this is going to be her outfit going forward. And I'm sure you remember it with the hidden backpack under her mini cape.
Vaguely, yeah.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Because Sean Murphy, I love his designs. I don't think they work on all levels, but I don't know, he has such a different way of looking at things, it's refreshing. And he designed it so that the arms of the bat in her symbol extend underneath her arms and up towards her neckline, and it has a mini backpack attached to those lines. So it hides itself relatively well. I'm going to go ahead and send you the link to the Newsarama story just because it's a little hard to pull their artwork off of the web.
That's fair.
But it has low boots. They didn't go with the high boots that have a silhouette of the bat head on it. It has a yellow utility belt, yellow gloves. It has a dark gray cape on the outside. It's light blue on the interior. And for the first time I can remember, she's not using a cowl. She's using a domino mask with a couple of ears attached to it.
This kind of reminds me a lot of Nightwing's costume.
It does echo it in certain degrees. I don't know if those ears are like Batman's ears where they have an antenna attached to them in any sort, but it's a good original design.
It is, yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do like it.
So I look forward to see where it's going forward. Also in the world of Batman, and Sean Murphy, as a matter of fact, he's officially announced his follow-up to his White Knight mini-series event in the Batman Black label. Wow, I'm stuttering all over the place today. The official name of the project is Batman Curse of the White Knight. It's coming out in 2019. There is no firm release date that I'm aware of as of yet. The synopsis of it is, quote, "In this explosive sequel to Sean Murphy's critically acclaimed blockbuster Batman White Knight, the Joker recruits a savage partner to help him expose a shocking revelation about the Wayne family's legacy and run Gotham into the ground. As Batman rushes to protect the city and his loved ones from this corrupt conspiracy, the mystery of his ancestry unravels and deals a devastating blow to the Dark Knight. Exciting new villains and unexpected allies will clash across history in this unforgettable chapter of the White Knight saga, and the truth about the blood they shed will shake Gotham to its core." Unquote. That sounds like every other Batman solicit to me.
It does.
Yeah, but I trust Sean Murphy's writing in that White Knight was a very memorable Batman story, and the promo art for this shows three figures. Batman, the Joker, and Azrael.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, this isn't Azrael in his pseudo-bat armor either. This is Azrael in his old-fashioned red hood, cloak, and mask, carrying a flaming sword. I'm really curious to see what his take on it, because Murphy made the Joker compelling, which is difficult for such a random character. He made Batman more compelling by making him like twice as flawed as anybody's ever dared to take him before. And I will never forget what he did for Harley Quinn. So I'd like to see what he can do for Azrael.
Interesting.
Brian Michael Bendis, currently working on the Superman series for DC Comics, has announced that as of issue 1005 of Action Comics, he's reintroducing a character that really hasn't been seen since the New 52. The Question is returning.
Huh.
The Question was created by Steve Ditko way back when.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, he was an anti-hero who met his end in the 2006 weekly series 52. And after that, the original Question, a man named Sage, he bequeathed everything to Renee Montoya, a Gotham cop, for a while. Since the rebirth, no version of the Question has been seen. So this is new territory, technically.
Huh.
I'd like to know what the story is. The Question is one of those characters that can really take over people's imagination. But it's always hard to tell who's going to do what with it, because some people just try and play him as a straightforward detective. That's not really good enough for a man as quirky as wears a mask that hides all of his features. Actually, I'd think he'd be one of the creepiest things going. He should show up in a movie.
Yeah.
Grant Morrison's take on the Green Lantern, his series called The Green Lantern, is scheduled to debut November 7th, and now it's going to debut at 12:01 a.m. November 7th. DC Comics has announced a midnight release event for the Green Lantern #1. As part of it, the publisher's offering 3 exclusives: an open-to-order black and white variant of the primary cover, 25 Liam Sharp lithographs, the artist of the series, and a Green Lantern cake top art upon request. I don't know why you do that. There's no art to show off this Green Lantern top art, whatever it is. Other DC November 7 titles will also be available at midnight, including Justice League #11, Suicide Squad Black Files #1, Adventures of Super Sons #4, Batman #58, Border Town #3, The Curse of Brimstone #8, Deathstroke #37, The Dreaming #3, Green Arrow #46, Harley Quinn #53, Nightwing #52, The Unexpected #6, and The United States vs. Murder Incorporated #3. Sounds like every comic that week by DC is going to be sold at midnight. But I'm sure it all revolves around this. Grant Morrison writing a Green Lantern comic is a big deal, because Green Lantern is very, very highly lauded for DC hardcore members, or fans, I should say. He's not my cup of tea personally. You read any Grant Morrison stuff?
No. Not that I can recall.
Okay, I mean, he wrote New X-Men, that period where the X-Men made their identities known as public, told everybody what the school was, dressed up in black leather with giant yellow X's on it. He was responsible for that.
Wasn't reading it at that time, no.
Yeah, he's also done a number of DC event books. He's not my favorite because he's one of those guys that I think he writes everything based on his nostalgia of prior DC stories, which means it's very hard for me to decode as somebody who casually reads DC. But, what do I know, right? Batman writer Tom King has also teased how his run on the title of Batman ends, supposedly. Remember, he said he had like a 104-issue story idea, right? He is a fan-favorite writer of comic books in general, not just in DC. And somebody at a recent convention asked him to draw the final cover of his Batman story on a blank cover issue of Batman. And he did just that. He drew what his idea of his finale is going to be, and it's a little hard to pull apart, only because Tom King is a writer, not an artist. So what we have here is an ugly drawing of a Batburger franchise restaurant with 2 people sitting in a booth, and one of them appears to have ears. I can't tell if that's either a cat or a bat, and there's something in between them, although I don't know if that's food or a baby.
That's very odd.
I can't tell. And then in the background appears to be the bat signal and a kite flying, which could signify Kite Man for all I know.
And Batbird could he be being about the Condiment King?
I don't know. I just love the fact that Tom King signed it along with the phrase, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, he does that.
Oh my gosh, that's weird.
So if anybody can understand this, please tell me what it means, because I'm a little bit lost myself. And last up in DC comic news, man, the Batman Beyond comic series currently going on for DC actually echoed one of the storylines from the animated show, and they're taking it to the next level.
What's that?
Jesse, you were a big fan of Batman Beyond, I think?
Oh yeah, I watched it.
Okay.
Most of it.
All right. Do you remember when Terry McGinnis had a girlfriend that wasn't his longtime paramour?
No.
He was going out with a girl named Melissa, I think, back when he and Dana were on the outs, and Melissa turned out to be 10 from the Royal Flush Gang.
Oh yeah. Okay, I remember that.
Right. So, in a recent fight in the comic books, 10 got into a fight with Robin. See, there's a couple things I should explain. Melissa has been trying to show herself as a vigilante to the current Batman. She's trying to mend her evil ways since most of her family's in prison right now. The Robin is Terry's younger brother. So, while the two of them got into a fight, Melissa figured out that Terry is Batman. Meanwhile, what was it? Young Robin here figured out that Melissa knows more than she's letting on. And as a result of her figuring it out, Terry and his brother, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, took Melissa to Bruce Wayne directly. And the funny thing is, Bruce Wayne is the one who's arguing that Terry continues to bring people from the outside into their world, and he draws a line at criminals. To which a person vouching for Melissa named Jack noted that Bruce doesn't have the greatest of track records when it comes to women of crime in his history.
You think?
So Bruce has reluctantly accepted Melissa into the inner circle right now. And some people are saying that Melissa may turn out to be the newest version of Catwoman in Batman Beyond. I think that's a bit of a stretch. If anything, she's more like the current spoiler.
Yeah, it would be a stretch.
Has Spoiler reappeared at all since 52?
Not in Batman Beyond, as far as I know. Remember, that is the future of Bruce Wayne and his pseudo-son, Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, I'm asking if she's ever appeared in the mainstream since 52.
Oh, dude, she's been all over Detective Comics since the Rebirth. She only recently left that series.
Huh.
She was part of that Detective Comics. You don't remember? We read that story, the first volume of Detective Comics in the Rebirth. The one with Clayface and Orphan and Batwoman.
And that's one where Robin ended up disappearing in the end, or halfway through that?
Yeah, that's the one where they thought he died at the end of the first arc.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Spoiler was a big part of that book, even after Tim Drake came back, but now that both of them are out of it. I don't know what the storyline is in Detective right now. I think it's back to being under Batman and whatever adventures he has. Which I'm kind of sad about. The Detective Comics team under Batwoman, that was new and original.
Yeah.
But I think it only took about 2 years for that storyline to collapse. That's the thing that DC has often really had trouble with, in my opinion, is taking some of their C and B list heroes and villains and elevating them into main event players. It's like Batwoman lost her own series, but she had a huge spotlight running a team with Detective Comics, and they still found a way to write the story so that, Batwoman is on the outs with everybody afterwards, and now she doesn't have any kind of series to her name.
Right, they were written into a corner, basically.
Mm-hmm. Or they wrote themselves into the corner. So I really don't know what to say about that. And that's kind of frustrating considering now Batwoman's about to get her live-action debut on the CW, I want to say early next year. She's debuting with the next CW crossover event for their DC shows.
That's right. Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, Ruby Rose has been cast as it, which turned out to be its own kind of controversy because there were people that said she was too gay to play Batwoman, an LGBT character, mind you.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole other segment of people who said she wasn't gay enough to play Batwoman.
Can all the fanboys just shut up and keep their opinions to themselves and let people enjoy things?
I'm trying to figure out what too gay is to play a lesbian. I can't wrap my head around that kind of logic.
They have none. That's the thing.
I watched Ruby Rose on Orange is the New Black. She can act. I know she's a singer, but she can act. So I just don't get it. Last up is general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. And unfortunately, this is one of those weeks where I have to start with a creator death.
Oh no.
Artist Norm Breyfogle passed away at age 58. Breyfogle was very well known to DC Comics fans. Back in 1987, he was hired to revive the Detective Comics series. and Breyfogle drew Batman for 6 years, and he was also instrumental in redesigning Robin back in 1990. If you remember, prior to then, that was the infamous outfit we keep making fun of with the elf shoes and the scaly Speedos.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, both Dick Grayson and Jason Todd wore that outfit. In 1990, Robin was redesigned for full green tights, red trunks, long green gloves, that almost shirt-like armor he was wearing up top.
Mm-hmm.
Breyfogle designed that.
Good on him.
Yeah. Breyfogle also helped co-create villains like the ventriloquist and Scarface with Alan Grant.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. After that, Breyfogle moved on to Malibu Comics, where he provided art for the Prime series. Then, in 1994, Breyfogle penned and wrote his own creator-owned series, Metaphysique, a series about 6 people who unwittingly become involved in a mad scientist's plan to become a god. Breyfogle also penciled series like Shadow of the Bat, Anarchy, Batman the Abduction, Superman, Batman Dreamland, and The Spectre. He was also a novelist and a poet, penning more than 1,300 haikus as part of a 5-month marathon.
Wow.
Jeez. A lot of creators chimed in on being sorry about his loss, including Scott Snyder, Jim Lee, Tim Seeley, Tom King, Andy Corey, Mitch Gerads, Al Ewing, J.M. Mateus, Dan Jurgens, Tony Daniel, Patrick Zerker. He touched a lot of lives, and this is a man that helped, I don't want to say recreate Batman in the 90s, but he definitely helped redesign his look during that period. So that's a sad loss. He died at 58, and his family will not say what he died of.
Oh.
It has been confirmed, though, that back in 2015 he did have a stroke.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to hear about that. As much as I'm not a fan of DC Comics, I never want to hear about anybody hurt.
Right.
New York Comic Con for this year is expecting over 250,000 people through their doors.
Yikes.
Last year, the organizers of it, I believe it's Reed Pop. Yeah, it's Reed Pop. They counted 227,000 people at New York Comic Con, which I agree is possible, although I don't quite buy that number. The hall that they hold it in doesn't seem to be able to hold that physically. I have a suspicion that Reed Pop uses turnstile numbers rather than actual count. Joanne, I take it you know the difference between the two.
For which two?
Between turnstile counting and physical counting when it comes to attendees.
Yeah, when you're actually counting numbers of tickets versus people that walk through, because they have re-entries, so one number's going to be a little bit more accurate.
Exactly, and Reed Pop's numbers just jumped over the course of a couple of years. That's usually an indication that they changed counting tactics rather than an attendance jump. In their case, though, 227,000 would make them by far the largest convention happening in the United States regarding comic books, yet they never tout themselves as such on their website, which makes me curious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
San Diego Comic-Con is very frank that they have 130,000 people, and they've sold out during like the last 7 years. This convention expects to have over 250,000, and I suspect that they're counting a number of their badge holders. In other words, if it's a 4-day convention, I think they're counting some of their 4-day badge holders as 4 people, things like that.
That seems a little odd, but okay.
It's not unheard of, though. A lot of anime conventions love to do it when their attendance drops, or when they want to make themselves seem bigger. The Anime Expo loves to use turnstile numbers, which drives me up a wall, and Jesse knows about that.
Yeah.
Chelsea Kane, the writer on the Mockingbird series, the one who also had her recent miniseries for The Vision canceled at Marvel. She is now putting out her own creator-owned book on Image Comics called Man-Eaters. According to the synopsis on Newsarama, quote, in a world where the real-life disease toxoplasmosis is mutated, causing women to transform into killer wildcats, humanity's hope is a young 12-year-old Maud who is about to take her own steps into womanhood, unquote. Okay. I'm curious about that storyline just by that synopsis.
Yeah, the premise seems a little outlandish.
Yeah.
Well, come on. I mean, I read comic books about people who, one twisted genetics, are able to destroy mountains. Outlandish is where I live.
But they're saying women are big man-eating cats.
Only ones that are infected with this mutated strain of toxoplasmosis.
So basically, quote-unquote, not all women. I'm just saying it's a little
at least
off-putting.
at least it's nothing as derivative as women transform into wildcats while they're experiencing their monthly cycles.
You mean like werewolves at the full moon once a month?
Hey,
I'm just saying that was a euphemism.
yeah, you said it, not me. Okay, I'm going to get by with that.
I'm entitled to saying it, I guess.
That was awesome.
According to Kane in an interview with Newsarama, quote, "It's a story about female adolescence and a girl who's worried she's turning into a monster. In our world, with a few slight adjustments. Toxoplasmosis, a parasite that's found in cat poop, has mutated and pretty much everyone is infected with it. Fun true fact, the Center for Disease Control estimates that 60 million Americans are infected with toxoplasmosis as I write this. The parasite affects people differently. Some just have mild flu-like symptoms. Menstruating women transform into flesh-eating wildcats." Oh my god, it was right.
Damn it.
The world's governments have controlled the epidemic by adding estrogen to all public water supplies. Most women no longer menstruate, but occasionally there are still outbreaks, unquote.
Was this written by a male? Because that's not how any of this works.
No, it's written by Chelsea Kane, the writer of the Mockingbird
Okay.
series.
All right. Just, I'm sitting here like, really, estrogen levels wouldn't. Anyway.
I'm curious about the story because it does sound like there are some sci-fi horror aspects to it, but at the same time, this sounds like one of the cleanest allegories for growing up or being scared of growing into an adult that I've ever heard.
Because adults are monsters.
Yes, we are. You think the world got to this point? You think the world got to the way it is because we're good at stuff? No.
Yeah, well, stress makes people do crazy stuff, and
yeah,
commutes do something to your brain too. No, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, and I'd like to see maybe how they work and explain the science into it.
Well, the story's supposed to come out relatively soon. I'm going to be on the lookout for that just so I can peruse it.
All right, let me know.
All right. Also, after a successful campaign on television, the Magician series is being adapted into comic books.
Really?
Yeah, the young adult fantasy series has been created by Lev Grossman. They're currently, I think they're filming their 4th season for Sci-Fi. The first novels of the series are being adapted into an original graphic novel. They're calling it The Magician's Alice Story. The adaptation is being written by Lila Sturges. The illustrations are by P.S. Bach. And it's coming out this coming July by Boom Studios.
Huh. Boom is really getting out there.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of aggressive licensing done. I haven't read the books. I'm enjoying the television show, but according to the story on CBR.com, the graphic novel based on the first novel is being rewritten from Alice Quinn's perspective. So I
haven't seen the show, but I'll maybe check it out now.
Well, I've tried to describe it to people, and it doesn't always catch, but the best way I can describe it is an adult American version of Harry Potter. If you got time for a basic layout, there's a young man named, I think it's Colin Quinn, which is a very comic book name to begin with. Mm-hmm. But he has been in and out of mental institutions all of his life, and his favorite thing is a series of books. Wow, I'm really off today. About a mystical land called Fillory. It has aspects of like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and a couple other things going on in it. Mm-hmm. It involves like a couple young English kids in World War II who travel to this magic land to escape like a lot of the pressures of everything, and basically to say it going for or to lay it out shortly, this is one of the few tenuous connections he has to reality. The rest of the time he's medicated, he's depressed, he does like sleight of hand tricks because it's as close to magic as he ever gets, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So during the first story, he is supposed to go to graduate school. He's trying to make something out of his life, and he wants to become a social worker. So as he's on his way there, he opens a door to the building, but as he walks through, he realizes he's in a completely different place that he doesn't recognize. He's asked to sit down with like 30 other people, including a childhood friend of his, who's supposed to be going to Harvard, I think. And as they sit down and open the test books, they realize that as they're reading things, all the words on it start to shift into glyphs and then start to shift into something else, and they're required to answer these tests. It turns out they've been redirected to a test to find out who has magical aptitude.
Interesting.
And his friend was denied, but he was accepted, and almost immediately he goes through another door and he ends up in a place called Breakbills, which is a school hidden in upstate New York that teaches magic. It's part of a series of Breakbills academies all over the world. And again, these are college-age people, so you're not dealing with the usual adolescence thing that you would find in like Harry Potter books. These are full-grown adults who are readjusting to the idea that they're not just crazy. The fantastic does happen in their lives.
And trying to explain it to somebody would make them look crazy.
Right. And think of it as like modern urban arcanum. There are people outside the schools who know magic exists. Some of them graduated from the school. Others were thrown out of the school. Things like that. And this whole story is being written now, again, in the graphic novel, not from Colin Quinn's perspective, but from the perspective of one of his primary love interests in the series, Alice Quinn.
Interesting.
So I'd be interested to check this out, if only because I'm a fan of the TV show. I haven't picked up the books because young adult novels are not always written in a way that pleases my brain. But I'm interested in this graphic novel. Sorry, I know I went off on a tangent there, but it sounded like neither of you were very aware of what I was talking about.
No, but it does sound interesting.
It's a good show. It's not suitable for kids at all because there's a lot of simulated sex in these things. Again, college-age people. And it's also very graphic, and I don't mean sexually, I mean physically. There's one guy who had to pull like a secret object out of a rabbit, and it was still alive.
Ew.
Yeah, it didn't show him tearing it apart, but there was this squeezing and squeaking noise that bothers me as somebody who has a pet rabbit sitting on the dresser.
And it's looking at you like, how dare you?
Yeah, every time I rewatch that episode, its head pops up like, what the frick is going on out there, man?
Like, what are you doing?
Can't say I blame him. Dark Horse and Blizzard are teaming up for StarCraft Soldiers comic book series. It's following the success of the recent StarCraft Scavengers. And in January 2019, it's going to be a new limited series called StarCraft Soldiers. Actually, a month later, StarCraft Scavengers will be going on sale as a trade paperback edition. Soldiers is going to follow Shivani Singh, a recently graduated lieutenant who's eager to defend the Dominion on the front lines. But after she's posted on the faraway planet of Kavir, she realizes it'll take more than good grades and confidence to survive the edge of Zerg space, unquote. Any StarCraft fans here? I've never been able to stay in it.
Nope.
Watch it off and on. Sounds like that planet is an important
Okay.
place. I don't know exactly how.
Well, StarCraft Soldiers is scheduled to hit comic book shops January 23rd, 2019 if you're interested. StarCraft Scavengers, the trade paperback, goes on sale February 19th, 2019. Soldiers' creative team boasts writers including Jody Hauser and Andrew Johnson, artist Miguel Sepulveda, and colorist Michael Attier. And is anyone familiar with the world of music? Because I have a new series here written by a DJ.
DJ?
No.
Yes, DJ Steve Aoki.
No idea.
He's a Grammy-nominated international producer and DJ. He's teaming up with Eisner Award winner Jim Kruger and Impact Theory's Tom Bilyeu. The artist on is Neil Edwards and Jeremy Rapak. It's going to be a new original comic book series called Neon Future. The official description, quote, nearly 30 years from now, in response to a global economic crisis, the U.S. has enacted Article 10, commonly known as the Return, which made all advanced technologies illegal. The Return promised to create jobs by eliminating the technology that displaced so many workers through automation. But the lasting result has been an increase in the class divide, blatant bigotry, and a war between the augmented, who have chosen to integrate technology into their bodies, and the authentic, who have not. Out of the systematic oppression of the techno class, a resistance movement known as the Neon Future was born, unquote.
Sounds like a steampunk series.
It does sound steampunky, but the other thing that strikes me is that description, as fantastical as it sounds, considering the administration we live in today in the U.S., it's entirely plausible. We live with people who would make decisions that weird.
That's true. That's fair.
So I'm almost interested to read it only because we may not be that far off.
Surprisingly, I'm interested in reading it too. The premise sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I don't have a release date yet, and it doesn't say which publication is putting it out. I don't know if this is Boom or Dark Horse or Dynamite. I just know it's a creator-owned series known as Neon Future. I'm going to have to keep an eye out for this one.
Huh.
And last up, in general comic book news, we're finally returning to the world of Pandora, but not via movies. Dark Horse Comics has adapted James Cameron's Avatar series into a new comic book in 2019. They're calling it Avatar Sute's Path, set during the events of the original film from 2009. I imagine Sute's Path is going to cover the rise of the warrior and rival for the love interest in the movie. I don't remember the character's name.
I don't either. I just remember blue cat people and a magic glowing tree, and it was basically Pocahontas.
It was Last of the Mohicans in space.
Well, yeah. Last of the Mohicans, Pocahontas, Ferngully, all of those were the same.
Yeah, it's not that it's a bad movie or not that I don't care about it. It's just been so long since I watched it, I really don't remember a lot of the names of characters. I remember the faces really well.
Yeah.
But I don't remember their names. I can't say that I would read this offhand, but I can see people who would want to, especially since the new movies are coming relatively soon. I think the first one's scheduled to be in theaters around December of 2020.
They're making new movies? I didn't hear about that.
They were filming the next 3 in a row.
I thought they were filming a prequel for it too.
I hadn't heard about a prequel. I mean, this comic book technically applies as a prequel. But there's supposed to be 3 subsequent stories. And I do know that just about the entirety of the cast from the original movie was involved in these three movies in one form or another. From what I understand, the guy that played the villain, the steel-haired guy with the claw marks down his face, he's getting resurrected somehow, and he's going to be an ongoing villain through the films. Sigourney Weaver is going to be reappearing in some capacity, probably because she's been added to the life cycle of Pandora before the end of her life there.
Right.
And most of the original cast that was in motion capture came back to do more motion capture. Dark Horse's Avatar, Sute Path, is going to be a 6-issue miniseries written by Sherry Smith. Other creators are Dan Duresma, Dan Parsons, and Wes DeZoba. Goes on sale January 16th, 2019. I don't know what else to say. It may not be my dig, but I know there's a bunch of people out there who'd be interested in it. The subject of this week is Saga Volume 1. This is the first 5 issues of the Saga comic book from Image Comics. It was a creator focus series, if I remember correctly, but it's one of the first original comics I've read in a while that aimed to be a space epic, and in my opinion, they hit that mark. The writer of the series is Brian K. Vaughan, the artist is Fiona Staples, the letters are done by Phonographics. The coordination was done by Eric Stephenson, and I'm going to leave his name in there only because there really isn't that many creators here. This has pretty much been done by the same 2 people since the comic opened, and it's going on hiatus, I think, for 12 months while the 2 creators recharge their batteries.
How long has it been going on?
It's 58 issues now, so that would put it at roughly 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
This is a combination of a number of different genres here. As much as it is a space epic, there is a lot of magic involved. There is a definitive Romeo and Juliet vibe here. There is an escape movie vibe here. There's a family movie vibe here. There's a little bit of a horror vibe in this. This is really an all-encompassing type of tale.
Yeah, it does roll everything in one. It was interesting how there was magic users and there was people with really technologically advanced things too, just kind of living side by side.
The thing that amazes me the most, though, is as many different genres, as I said, this series touches on, it never really seems to lose focus on what it wants to be. And primarily, at least in my interpretation of it, it's a story about family and how the choices we make affect a lot of people around us. Okay, that's a lot of silence.
No, I'm nodding. I didn't know if you were continuing.
Okay. The primary focus of the story would be Marco and Alana. Marco is a member of what's commonly termed in the derivative as a Moonie. He's from a moon, I believe the planet is called Wreath, the lone moon of Wreath, where magic is pretty much the primary form of commerce is the wrong word, just the primary form of life where he comes from. And his people tend to have more animalistic features. In his case, it's ram ears and horns. Alana comes from Wreath itself, the more technologically advanced species. They don't do magic whatsoever, but her species tend to have wings of one sort or another, be them insect-like, leathery, like ancient reptiles, or feathered, like birds. And for reasons that apparently no one even remembers, the two parties are at war. It's been so long, the parties are at war, and rather than mess up their own homelands, the 2 parties have decided to take their war to planets all over the galaxy.
Okay, I need to give do a correction on you. Wreath is the name of the moon.
Okay.
The planet is called Landfall.
Landfall, thank you. And I mean, the story is basically, the story picks up, the first issue picks up, the two of them have already been in love for quite a while, obviously, because Alana's giving birth.
Right.
You know, we're not starting with the two crossing gazes at whatever random point they decided to put in the story. We're already deep in the middle of their problems. And no, childbirth is not one of their problems, but the fact that them having a child puts them at odds with both parties does make a significant problem. And, I mean, Joanna, what was your first impressions reading this? Because this had to be really odd to come in at this moment.
Yeah, it threw you right in the middle. So I was trying to figure out everything about the world, and they give it to you in good doses, you know, the information that you need to understand to get the story, but it does have that kind of Romeo Juliet forbidden love vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're on the run. She's giving birth to this baby that neither side likes because it's half of the other side.
Yeah.
And that's all they can see. And these two are just despised of both sides because they fell in love with each other and they have this kid and they're married, and both sides are, it turns out, after them.
Well, I mean,
and it never says why they hate each other so much. To maybe understand that would give a better idea why there's so much hate.
I imagine that may be something that's explored later in the series, because you would think the reason behind this galaxy-spanning war would be pretty tremendous, but then again, we've had our own stories in the U.S. where two families fought for decades over apparently a pig, but no one's entirely sure because it's been so long, nobody knows.
Are you referring to the Hatfields and the McCoys?
I am.
Yep.
Right.
So I guess two ancient races being at war for so long nobody remembers is more feasible than I think it is. But at the same time, while there is a Romeo and Juliet basis in this story, these two characters, Marco and Alana, are nowhere near as naive as young Romeo and Juliet.
No way. They're very savvy.
They are. Alana is she's straightforward and very aggressive. Marco is a bit more passive and would prefer to walk around problems and walk through them.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco is a former soldier in the armies of Wreath, but he's decided to forego his weapon as a conscientious objector. You gotta feel for the poor guy. I don't know how he got involved in all... Well, actually, he said in the series, he's gung-ho. He wanted to serve his world with distinction. Then he found out after he got there, war is fucking unimaginable.
Yeah.
You know, the opening salvo here, it's like right after they give birth to this young baby girl, is when both sides show up and start threatening them all for the baby. And I'm still unclear as to whether it's been explained why the baby is so important that both sides want it, but nobody wants to hurt it.
Right, they both want it alive.
Yes. They don't give a crap about the
parents.
Right, they don't give a crap about the parents, but they want this baby for some reason. There's got to be something extra normal about children born of these types of unions that I'm just not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I can only speculate. It's just a matter of figuring out how, why, and can we use this.
Well, I mean, use is the obvious term, but I mean, is it use because proof of these children can show that they can get along in peace and harmony, or is it because maybe these children have access to extra energy or powers and they're being used as batteries? I don't know.
And maybe that's the driving force of the story, you know, later on in the series, because the narration is by the baby girl. Apparently, this is all just a flashback. So there's kind of like handwritten, it looks like font in the corners, and it's the narrator who is the baby at a later time.
I like the way they did that, though, because of the handwritten nature of the narration. Instead of it being put in boxes, it almost seemed like the narration was just woven into the story in this format.
Mm-hmm. It was an interesting method.
Oh, I actually enjoy that each voice has their own kind of text.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Also, the narration was a little bit haunting because she always seemed to be talking about her parents as if neither one really survived far into her lifetime.
Right. She speaks them in past tense.
Consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me worried about what comes in the future. I remember the first time we saw Landfall, because we'd already seen one of these bizarre TV-headed Conti Fooly Cooly style robots at the very beginning here before it was killed in battle.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get our first view of Landfall and there's somebody yelling deeper from inside a room, I remember thinking, I wonder what it would look like if two of these things had sex. You flip the page. Oh my god, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that was like a TMI moment.
It really was. The male robot in this pairing is known as Prince Robot IV. I know, basic name, but I still don't know what part he has to play in all this beyond the 5 issues. I felt kind of bad for him because you can tell by the weird little flashes that come up on his monitor face. He is suffering from some major PTSD.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of those guys that when he's emotionally driven, he definitely wears his heart on his face. Although still, staring at these things naked with a monitor heads, I'm more than a bit disturbed.
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah. I did really enjoy Marco and Alana's relationship because it's still very new to them. The concept of being married, trying to get along with a partner, because both of them are hiding some very strange secrets. You know.
Yeah, and they're still learning how to negotiate and compromise with each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it came out, I think, in the 4th issue that Marco had a fiancée that he never talked about before.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he was near death.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, you know, he was captured in an enemy stronghold, so it's not like he's going to be very forthcoming about his personal life.
Right, it's fair.
And then, Alana has her own problems. Well, not problems, but she does have some unspoken obsessions with romance writers. And I do know that somewhere, I want to say in the 2nd or 3rd volume, she developed a substance abuse problem.
What?
Substance abuse? She had a bit of a...
Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
Yeah,
the secret?
She had a drug problem. Like a straight-up drug problem in the I think the 3rd volume, actually? Yeah, 3rd volume. I
must have missed that.
The 3rd volume wasn't in the reading. We only read the first one.
Gotcha.
No, I've read through volume 3 in my own time after I read the first volume, as I, managed to pick up the books in the middle of bookstores and I'm bored or something of that nature. Because I was just driven by the whole thing, especially after meeting the Will in the first issue, the freelancer, their version of a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
There's something very likable about the guy. It's not like Han Solo scoundrel type likable necessarily, but it seems like he has a sense of morality, if not ethics.
Right, for a bounty hunter anyway.
Yeah. It's definitely a sliding scale on the level of morality, but he has certain lines he just seems to refuse to cross personally. Between his relatively detached demeanor and his partner, the Lying Cat.
I love the Lying Cat. I need one.
Now, the Lying Cat is a giant blue hairless feline about the size of a mountain lion. And it's very intelligent, but it doesn't speak unless it senses somebody telling an untruth in its vicinity, to which it only says the word lying. That's the only word it ever says. And whenever somebody seems to dare the Lying Cat to tell them it's lying, it always gets this perturbed look on its face, like, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what kind of intelligence this thing has. It's not exactly detailed in the course of a character that has no dialogue.
Right.
What'd you think when Marco and Alana escaped the sewers?
I figured that they still weren't out of the woods.
Well, I mean, the story just started. That was kind of a given, but did you think it was going to be as bad?
Nope. It was out of the pan into the fire.
Yeah. I mean, they're supposed to cross a bridge over a valley that's supposed to be relatively quiet, and it turns out the entire valley is turned into a war zone.
It's like, well, maybe we can tiptoe around the outside.
Yeah, and I should say it's not a passive war zone. It's an active war zone. Things are exploding, flying, driving through.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty ugly out there, and then they're surrounded by something they can't see in the forest. All those glowing red eyes at the end of Chapter 1.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah. In Chapter 2, yeah, they're being attacked by the forest. I can't remember what it was called.
All the vines?
Yeah.
Endless Woods.
The Endless Woods, thank you. Yeah, and apparently it had very reactive vines that just loved to grab everything.
Yeah, I like Alana's line. This is what I get for marrying a vegan. That's great.
It was even better a couple panels later when she's complaining about the baby. She's fucking snoring. Meanwhile, I've got quick vines trying to get inside me. Use your sword already.
Yeah.
She's not subtle.
That'd be cause for sword.
Yeah. She's not subtle, but Marco won't draw his sword because he just refuses to draw it. He doesn't want to use a weapon of war ever again. I would really like to know what he saw. I know he surrendered after a fight, but I didn't get in the first volume what he went through specifically.
Well, I mean, it kind of gives a hint toward the end. When he does draw his sword, he kind of goes into a frenzy.
Yeah. He's... For a guy who's a conscientious objector, he has skills beyond.
Right.
He can definitely thrash an entire armada if he needed to. But after they escape the vines via magic means, they decide to sit and rest for a moment on the rock, and unfortunately the two of them fell asleep. Although, to be fair, they've probably been up for over a day and a half straight.
I mean, that's apparently parenthood.
Yeah.
Actually, according to the narration, 3 days.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm usually able to pass out after about 36 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
So when they wake up, they find out it's nightfall, and Marco's terrified of the horrors. He swears he saw them do things that were inhuman and cruel. And when they wake up, yeah, there's something nearby, but it's not the horrors, it's something called the Stalk, another freelancer. And,
yeah,
I've watched anime for a long time, so yeah, I've seen a number of different designs on human spider hybrids. This is by far the most original I've ever seen.
it was original and disturbing.
Oh, yeah. It appears to be a woman with no arms and a very big skirt. That's because underneath is where where she has 8 arms with 8 hands at the end of those arms, a spider-like body, and just about every one of those arms is carrying a weapon.
Yep.
She's probably only ambulating on 2 or 3 of those things at a time. And then there is the tongue with the stinger in it.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. It's one of those things where I invite you to look it up because the design is extremely striking. But, yeah, I have a general fear of things without a skeletal system, and this is setting off all kinds of red alarm bells in my head. I'm a little... What?
I was going to say, spiders don't bother me. That one did.
Yeah. I'm also bothered by another detail.
The eyes?
No, the Will is in love with the Stalk, and the two of them had a physical relationship. I'm still trying to piece together how.
Does he say your web or mine? I mean,
oh,
what
God.
What does that entail?
Oh, God. I don't even need to know details about her spinneret. I really don't. But just like the other freelancers, she's come for the baby, and Alana found a very unique way to deal with the problem by threatening to shoot the baby.
Yeah, she has an interesting weapon that it kind of fascinated me. It's called the Heartbreaker.
Yeah, it's a multi-purpose weapon. It's a non-lethal weapon from what I understand. Small children, it can be lethal, especially at close range. But from what I've been able to gather, it's a combination of a stunner and some kind of endorphin-depressing item. Like, it can actually make people so morose they can't move.
Right. So, and somebody mentioned in the text, I forget who, said that it basically gives you all the emotion and hurt of a broken heart. That's why it's called the Heartbreaker.
Yes.
That's, I don't know, that's a really cool thing. I would probably have 1 or 2.
It's a nice idea. It's a little bit terrifying to me, but, I guess if it won't kill anybody, it's not that bad of a thing. When she managed to drive off the Stalk, though, because of that and the strange moaning noises in the forest, the reveal of the horrors was almost hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's one of those, the legend grows wild and crazy, and it's just ghosts of kids that are the protectors.
Yeah, the planet has a very strange ecosystem when people who die on it basically their essences live on as defenders of the planet, which, as even the girl at the lead of this, a girl missing her lower half named Isabel, explains, it's a pretty bad system when the only way it works is for people to die.
Yeah.
And it also turns out that half the horrible things the horrors have been quoted as doing, people have seen, but that's because these ghosts can project mental illusions.
Right.
I believe the Stalk mentioned that she saw one of these horrors rip someone's spine out of their urethra.
That's rather specific.
It's not just specific, that is horrific.
Yeah.
You're talking about taking something the general width of a baseball and pulling it out of a hole around, half the size of a pea. That's amazingly scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt bad for these poor kids. I mean, it's not like kids are ever really meant to be in a war, but here they are, not just dead, but it's not like they can go anywhere either. They have to sit here and watch two alien races continue their war across their planet after their entire species died.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculously sad.
Yep.
I couldn't tell if the creators were trying to make a general statement about warfare in this comic, but it felt like they were trying to say, or they were trying to talk about how futile it can really be when it goes on for long periods of time.
Right.
I kind of got that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna, what were you going to say?
The fact that nobody knows what the war was about, that it's not even, oh, we're passionate because it's about this. It's just one of those, we have to do this because it's what we've always done. That was striking in itself, and it kind of tells this is a habit more than like a will, or like a war of right. Like, this is my land, you're invading. So basically the reasons have become really hazy.
Yeah, but, I mean, they're practicing warfare more as a cultural habit than any sort of necessity, unfortunately.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem like they're fighting over resources. They're all over other planets. Doesn't even seem like they're fighting for pride because they don't know what it's about. They're just doing it because they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sad.
Very.
Also, Prince Robot IV has been tasked by his people to bring in this hybrid child. When he had to interview that prisoner that looked like a Triceratops, I don't know. There was something about it that was just kind of weirdly tense until this thing decided to mention the battle he was a part of, but his army failed. He was one of the lone survivors. Then he started to viciously beat this guy with his feet and fists, threatened to shoot him. The guard came in and asked him what he was doing, and he just said, "Commencing my interview. Now be a dear and fuck the fuck off."
Yeah.
He's got some...
Somebody hit a nerve.
Oh, God, did he have baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, God, Alana in the next few pages getting lessons on motherhood from a dead teenage ghost. There's something beyond irony in that.
Yep.
And I've had 3 kids. It is a tough learning curve on the first one. It really is. You're learning a lot on the fly. But to be told all this by somebody who will never have children of their own, let alone never really lived into adulthood, that's humiliating.
Right. Plus, I mean, she does have some background because she's the oldest of 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, with my little sister, I gained a lot of knowledge. Of course, I also babysat after that. But that's a lot of first-hand knowledge.
Yeah. Chapter 4 of this series was a little bit disturbing because it's where they healed Marco so he's able to travel, but it's also where the Will decided to F off his mission, take the credit he was given by his employer, and go to a place called Sextillion, which is exactly what you think it is. But the very first page is basically 2 gigantic heads on legs welcoming him to this place, and I've had nightmares that aren't this terrifying.
Agreed.
Because they are just heads on legs, which you might think would be welcoming, except they're comically large heads. And then there's the unfortunate physical questions I have here similar to the Stalk that I don't want answered. I really don't. I don't care for the answer, but the Will spent most of this issue on this nightmarish sex world. And it's the type of world where child sex slaves are perfectly normal, which, oh God, that hits another nerve of mine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he took that groomer and squeezed his head between his hands, I wasn't necessarily cheering for the Will, but yeah, I got that, why he did that. I completely understood it.
It was a satisfying crunch.
Yes. Yeah, Marco gets healed, then he has to explain to his wife about his former fiancée. That had to be a fun conversation. And it must have been really weird for him to wake up and realize that his baby's being entertained by a half-dead ghost.
Yeah.
Because he was unconscious during the entire time she appeared, then soul-bonded with the child. And then when he comes to, there she is just making faces at the baby. I would have so many questions.
But hey, that means the parents get to sleep at night because that's when the ghost is out.
Yeah. But I did like that he asked the same question that people asked about things like gremlins. So if we go to another planet, how does she know when sundown is? Look, I don't have all the answers to Ghosthood right now, okay?
Right.
It's a good general question. It's also kind of sad to find out that the wedding ring he gave to his wife turned out to be the rings that were bequeathed to him by his former fiancée. I mean,
Yeah.
Double as universal translators.
yeah, which means they're useful, they're good to have, but at the same time, man, I couldn't imagine any woman, even if she's glad to see me, that would keep that. She'd be upset.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I speak on behalf of being a woman. Yeah, that would not fly.
Absolutely. Chapter 5 of this book, Marco and Alana meet a force from Landfall who have come to kill them and claim the baby, and yeah, Alana got hit by a stray bullet in the arm, and Marco lost his crap. The face he made was somewhere between Daredevil on a bender and Wolverine after 5 beers.
That's a good description. That's exactly what it was.
And he acted like it, too. He was lopping off hands like they didn't matter, kicking people, punching them so hard in the face their helmets were breaking. He has hidden demons he has not discussed yet.
Oh, yeah. And he straight up, like, bashed heads with one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With
Broke
his...
the helmet.
Shattered it.
Yeah, with his horns.
With his horns like a ram.
And he knocked them unconscious and dismembered them, but he hadn't killed anybody yet, and he was about to before his wife woke up and shot him with that heartbreaker.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she saved his life, but she definitely saved his conscience.
That's true.
But they use the skiff that the Landfallers left behind so that they can get to one of the rocket ships that they've been after. That would take a while to explain, and I'm going to skip that for the sake of time. But the Stalk found what was left of the Landfall crew, and she was kind of amazed that these people were going through so much trouble to keep them alive after beating them soundly. I almost felt bad for the Stalk after she ran into Prince Robot, though.
Yeah, it's the wrong place, wrong time thing.
Yeah. And it's a combination of bad things. I mean, somebody thought she was reaching under her dress to possibly get a weapon. For all I know, it could have been her ID. And unfortunately, Prince Robot IV, as we've discussed, has major PTSD, and he just found out he's going to be a father, so he's super defensive. And he just couldn't take the chance and literally shot her through the heart.
Yeah, that to me, and I don't know if this is intentional, kind of echoes with, how to say it delicately, issues where the police have shot and killed people for routine things like being pulled over ends up deadly, you know?
It's really hard to say, because at about 58 issues, yeah, this would have been 5 years ago, this would have been well past the point where people were having significant questions about police brutality in the modern era, anyway, towards minorities. I mean, I know this was a serious question in the 60s and 70s.
It happened back then, too. It's just gotten more and more media coverage.
Right. What I'm trying to say is I don't know if this was after that particular flare-up point in our history, because I know it's been happening throughout, but it just hasn't been of great importance, it seems like, to a lot of people until after Barack Obama was voted in as president. People took things into a different view than general. At 58 issues, it's possible, but I'm not very well up on my cultural history to say for sure. It's just the image of the Stalk seemingly shocked with a phone in her hand, dead, and half of her arms folded in on themselves like, like a dead spider.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chapter 6 is all about the escape of Marco and Alana from this half-dead planet, unfortunately, and they escape in one of the few wooden rocket ships left that are apparently grown by the former species.
Yeah, organic rocket ship.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
It's an interesting...
That's the first I've seen.
It's not the first time I've... Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard of it, but the design is relatively unique, and I love that it won't take off without an honest-to-God sacrifice of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And let alone it's explained after they take off that you don't steer a rocket ship, you ride one.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. Like, well, where are we going? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. The ghost girl has to tell him, I don't know. We'll find out when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
But Marco sacrificed his sword, the one he just used to defend his family, but still one he doesn't feel good about using.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. It was an interesting symbolic sacrifice, but the interior of their spaceship is definitely the most luxurious place they've been since this series started.
Yeah, it's pretty swanky.
Yeah. Let me see. Prince Robot IV has taken the Stalk ship so he can follow them off-planet. The end of this particular volume, though, when they're suddenly attacked by two of Marco's people. And I mean, those people came in like a house of fire. They immediately banished Isabel, the half-ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Lana starts defending herself with a heartbreaker, and then Marco starts screaming things in his home language, to which these two respond to, and what we find out is these are Marco's parents who came looking for him.
Yeah, the last line, I think it's the last line on the page, is the girl, what is her name?
Hazel. They named her Hazel.
Hazel. Yeah, it was an H. Hazel said, and this is how my grandparents came to live with me. And then they take off the helmets. I was like, oh, I thought they were assassins. Okay, then.
Yeah. For all we knew, there were just more freelancers or more people looking for this baby.
Right.
Turns out they were looking for their son and had no idea that the woman and baby with them were his.
Whoops.
Yeah.
It's going to be an awkward, long rocket ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just the first volume. It turned out to be the first 6 issues of this story. And I guess that's about the long and short of it. Joanna, since you're the newest with this, you want to give us a first final score?
Okay. No pressure. There's always pressure. What are we saying? The art style was interesting. It was a little different. Mm-hmm. The genre was really different. I didn't really know how to feel the first reading through. Second read through, I knew what was going to happen, so I could focus on, the artwork, the style, what they're saying through the story. The story definitely took some interesting, unexpected turns.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the setting, the universe, the rules of the universe. So it was a little unnerving jumping into, the story just immediately.
Yeah.
There's shots being fired. There's people on the run. I don't know if I need to care about them yet. So it was, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't terribly off-putting. The off-putting part was not knowing the politics, which I'm hoping are explained later. So it was kind of a dipping toes into an unknown pond. But it wasn't completely unenjoyable. There's just some scenes that were just graphic and not really my cup of tea in a disturbing way.
Yeah.
A couple of them. So I wasn't expecting that. So I would probably maybe give this only a 6.
Okay. That's fair. Jesse, what do you got?
Again, is second time reading this, and I don't recall I enjoyed it that much last time. All I can say is, the dialogue is great. It's good. It's read very well. You can read fairly quick for as thick as this series is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Art, I'm not a big. I really have no opinion on the art. It's just something I just eventually get used to. But overall, I don't think I found as great enjoyment out of this, only because I really couldn't get into the characters. Up to the parents is when my interest in the series actually finally peaked.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no. Scratch that. Isabel, I actually liked her.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really get into the main characters that were first introduced, except for maybe the robot prince.
Okay.
Strangely. But if I were to give this a rating, I should lean on to a 6 too. I definitely, if this mixture of genres is your cup of tea, go ahead and read it. It's not a difficult read.
All right. When it comes to the art style, it started out a bit scratchy. I wasn't quite sure what to make of the first few pages, but I realized that this is one of those things where the art reflects the story pretty well. Not to say that the story is messy, but it's a case where it's a little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing else. The art just reflects the tenor of the story and how dirty and desperate it is a lot of the time really well. The story is very graphic. It is not made for children in any respect. I would say, if I had to explain it simply, it's almost like what would happen if George Lucas had written Star Wars from the standpoint of a more sweeping epic than simply as a Western in space. It has echoes of culture, warfare, and a lot of different genres of storytelling somehow wrapped into one story that never really seems to lose track of itself. I don't know if that's because Brian K. Vaughan knows where the whole thing is headed as soon as he began it, or if it's one of those tales that's growing organically. I just don't know. But at the same time, I think it's not the most unique tale, but it's extremely well told. Despite the few issues I have with some of the more adult themes, I think it's really good. I think it's a solid 8. So that will be the end of it. I'd ask Casey what he thinks, but he's been quiet all night, so we'll just go on from there. I do have a few things in the hopper as to what to read next, and I would like to say that next up we should probably read something from DC. It's been a little bit, and I have 3 things to read in that regard, and I can leave it up to you guys which you'd prefer.
Okay.
I have the first 5 issues of the Super Sons, not the current miniseries, but the prior ongoing series of Damian Wayne and John Kent, the sons of Batman and Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I have Raven, Daughter of Darkness, issues 1 through 6, and I know that series is still ongoing, but 6 issues is usually a good chance to get a good flavor of a story.
Right.
And the third thing I have is the entirety of Supergirl Being Super. It was written by Mariko Tamaki, the person that's currently doing the X-23 series. And I wouldn't say it's a retelling of the origin of Supergirl, but I would say it's a retelling of her growing up on the Kent farm and how she relates to the people of Smallville. I know, it's a bit of a tough choice. They're all second-generation DC characters, but those were all stories I was pretty sure I wasn't familiar with going in, so...
Right.
I'll be honest. Super Sons I've interested in only because I hate Damian Wayne with a passion, and I've been told that this is it puts him in a better light.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm interested in Raven, too.
Yeah, I was leaning towards Raven because I have some of the issues. I haven't read them yet.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I don't have a horse in this race, so I'm willing to defer to the group on this one. But it sounds like Raven is the general consensus between the two of you, so I can go with that.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So next week it'll be Raven, Daughter of Darkness, issues 1 through 6. Thank you very much for tuning in. I apologize if I was stuttering a bit much. I don't know what happened there, but hopefully I'll have that fixed. I'll go see my mechanic. I want everyone to have a great one and enjoy the new fall weather. Enjoy. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And I'm Jesse.
Take care, everybody.